People often argue that money can secure almost everything. Yet on the morning of April 15th, 1912, as the Titanic sank into the icy waters of the Atlantic, it became clear that wealth could not guarantee survival. Some of the most affluent and influential figures of the era lost their lives on that ship. The money and power they possessed held no value against natural forces, human mistakes, and the overconfidence of a time that believed technology had fully mastered nature. They had fortunes capable of influencing markets, shaping political decisions, and financing massive projects. But in those final hours filled with fear, neither gold, nor stocks, nor vast estates mattered. The only thing that mattered was securing a place in a lifeboat, and many never had that chance. The sinking of the Titanic has been told so many times that it now feels almost routine. An iceberg, a ship declared unsinkable, and a heartbreaking loss. However, what makes this event more than an ordinary maritime disaster was its economic impact. The men who perished were not merely passengers, they were owners of immense wealth, financiers of railroads, steel empires, banks, and global trade networks. Their deaths were not just personal tragedies. They represented the destabilization of powerful families, the rapid transfer of capital, and significant changes in British and American financial systems during a period when money and power were deeply intertwined. For example, John Jacob Astor IV. At just 47 years old, he was one of the richest men in the world. Through real estate investments, luxury hotels, and inheritance from the famous Astor family, his fortune exceeded $87 million in 1912, equivalent to billions today. He invested in libraries, grand residences, and luxury developments. Shortly before boarding the Titanic, he married the much younger Madeline Force, which created a major public sensation. The voyage was meant to conclude their honeymoon. Astor attempted to secure a place in a lifeboat. Some wealthy men succeeded. However, witnesses stated that he helped his pregnant wife board a lifeboat and then stepped back. It is said that he asked whether he could accompany her, but was refused. In that moment, everything dissolved. He was last seen calmly smoking a cigarette on deck before the sea claimed him. His vast fortune was inherited by his unborn son. His death was not merely a loss, but the sudden transfer of one of America's greatest fortunes. Benjamin Guggenheim, heir to the Guggenheim mining empire, also lost his life. He lived an extravagant lifestyle and was traveling with Leontine Aubar. At first he downplayed the danger, but later he accepted the ship's fate. He reportedly changed into formal evening attire, stating that he wished to face death honorably. And his companion survived, he did not. His death became a symbol of aristocratic dignity. Beyond symbolism, however, there were financial consequences. The Guggenheim assets were placed under tighter control, and the family empire became more structured and consolidated. Isidor Straus, co-owner of Macy's in New York, also died aboard the ship. A former congressman and respected philanthropist, he and his wife Ida were offered seats in a lifeboat. Ida refused to leave her husband. Both perished. The Straus family fortune continued through their heirs, but his death revealed a simple truth. Wealth may provide comfort, but it does not grant immortality. The list continues. George Widener, a prominent figure in transportation, and his son Harry also lost their lives. This tragedy inspired the establishment of Harvard's Widener Library, transforming grief into a cultural monument. Even the ship's designer Thomas Andrews did not survive, leaving behind debates about ambition and negligence. To fully understand the Titanic's true impact, it must be examined within its economic context. The year 1912 stood on the brink of major transformation. The British Empire still led global trade, and American industry was expanding rapidly. The upper class lived in extraordinary prosperity. It was the final phase of the Gilded Age. Just 2 years later, World War I would shatter the old order. The Titanic was seen as the ultimate symbol of that era's confidence. Built primarily for the wealthy and promoted as unsinkable. When the iceberg tore into the ship's hull, privilege was forced to confront reality. There were only enough lifeboats for about half of those on board. Influence could not change that fact. When the ship sank, not only lives but also concentrated fortunes disappeared. Estates were divided, trusts were activated, and legal boundaries were tested. Vast sums changed hands overnight. In this sense, the disaster triggered one of the most dramatic wealth transfers of its time. Astor's estate was reorganized. The Guggenheim empire came under stricter control. The Widener tragedy evolved into philanthropy that reshaped academia. Wealth did not vanish. It transformed. The broader lesson is this: money provides advantages, but not absolute security. First-class passengers had higher survival rates, yet many among them still perished. The richest individual could drown alongside the poorest immigrant. Financial systems can alter probabilities, but they cannot eliminate risk entirely. This story remains relevant today. Just as the Titanic was marketed as unsinkable, markets are often portrayed as invincible. Before 2008, many believed housing prices could never fall. Before 1929, prosperity was assumed to be permanent. Every era places faith in its system, until reality intervenes. The iceberg is always there. Modern billionaires build bunkers, purchase remote properties, and even discuss space colonization. Yet history shows that systemic collapse spares no one completely. Wealth may delay consequences, but it does not provide immunity. Still, inequality shapes outcomes. On the Titanic, third-class passengers had lower survival chances. Today, during crises, the most vulnerable groups are the first to suffer. Economic history often records who secures a seat in the lifeboat. So, what does the Titanic teach us? First, never allow wealth to blind us to risk. Second, understand the fragility of fortunes. Third, recognize that preparation and sound judgment are often more important than status. For individuals, financial literacy is not merely about accumulating money. It is about building resilience. It means understanding economic cycles, avoiding complacency, and creating assets capable of withstanding shocks. The Titanic proves that the financial system is a powerful tool, but not an absolute shield. Economic history tells the story of ambition, excess, collapse, and renewal. The Titanic symbolizes every bubble and every wave of overconfidence: tulip mania, the South Sea bubble, the crash of 1929, the crisis of 2008, and many more. Each time confidence peaked. Each time reality intervened. One final lesson concerns legacy. Those wealthy individuals could not take their fortunes with them. Their money changed hands, financed institutions, and charted new paths. Wealth is not permanent ownership, but temporary stewardship. The real question is not how much you possess, but how wisely you manage it. History may not repeat itself exactly, but it echoes. The Titanic echoes whenever a system is declared untouchable. It echoes when capital becomes excessively concentrated. It echoes when risk is underestimated. The past has left us clues, and learning to read them is the most effective way to prepare for the future.